plant, and I just happen to have a plant that really needs leaching. Our water supply here, I've mentioned it before, that our water is extremely alkaline, and I'll just show you here in this plant how alkaline it is. And alkaline means that it's full of calcium and other salts as well that build up and show up in your soil. So you can see this poor little plant, I only take it out once or twice a year because it's so big. It's my lovely orchid cactus, Epiphyllum oxypetalum, and it is at least 7 to 8 feet high. So it's not easy to move it around, but now it's time. August is leaching month, and now we're about the 20th of August, and I got to give this thing a good leaching because it's got to last all the way through winter, because I'm not bringing it out again until next year. So anyway, to keep it out of the sun, I have to make sure it's not in too hot a location. And that's one of the things that I basically do, is make sure that that the plant's not going to be in the hot sun while I'm working on it. And today it happens to be raining a little bit. It's kind of cloudy, so I'm still going to act fairly quickly. I want to get this done before the direct sunlight comes out. This plant has been outside from time to time in the past. It's just that it's getting so big, and when it does bloom indoors, it's just so spectacular. But I'll show you, this is some of the symptoms of the salt damage. You can see the pale discoloration, and on the outer edges of the leaves, it's burning a little bit. Like, I know this plant has a touch of a virus as well, and the virus causes some of these spots on the leaves. But one of the major problems with this plant is it's just suffering from salt problems in the root system, so it needs leaching. So here we go. I would like to use, ideally, the best case is to use distilled water, because distilled water has literally nothing in it. It just doesn't have anything in it but just water, pretty much. There's not much for mineral content at all. So that's what I'm using here. Is I buy these jugs of distilled water, and I'm just going to start soaking it. I let this dry just slightly. Remember that if I let it dry completely, that the salt will become so toxic it'll literally kill the plant. So here we go. We're just going to dump this in here, and I just have to make sure that I'm soaking it over the entire top of the plant here. And I got to slowly dissolve this salt that's in there. So this is, I've been keeping this in a warm spot in the house, so it's slightly warm. So I'm just going to let that soak in there for a bit. I fully expect this to come out the bottom and to leach out and flood a little bit, but that's okay. I've got this spot here that makes sense for me to do it. It's difficult to get this thing up and down stairs just because it's so heavy. But what I do is, now I've soaked it, now I'll just wait approximately, say, about 20 minutes or so, and right now those salts are dissolving and dissolving in that water. So the cleaner the water is, the better it is. So I'm going to let this soak here for a little bit. I think I'm going to put the rest of this gallon in there. Again, make sure I coat all the surfaces of the soil and let that soak in. And now I'm going to come out. I'm going to do this about at least 3 or 4 more times. And so each time I do it, the salts will dissolve a little more and a little more and a little more. So remember that plants' roots use salts. They use salts in the roots to help absorb water. And that's one of the key things. It's osmosis. Osmosis is the attraction of water to an area of high salt concentration. So in the roots, if it's salty in the roots, the water will move into the roots much more easily. So that's how the plants bring in the water. But if your soil becomes so salty that the plant's not going to be able to absorb that water. So what actually happens is you get reverse osmosis, literally, where it's, the soil is so salty it's sucking water out of the plant's roots. And then that's why you see these symptoms on the edge of the leaf, and the edges getting burned and whatnot. So especially large leaf tropical plants suffer from this. Remember, leaching of house plants is at least a minimum of once a year, but ideally twice a year. Once in the spring when it warms up and you can get the plants outside so it doesn't shock them. Put them in a shady spot, give them a good leach. And then repeat the process about now, which is at the end of August, early September. Do the same thing, give them a good leaching, and then watch them grow, because they certainly bounce back super fast when they're not under moisture stress constantly and salt stress from the roots. So there you go. I'm gonna run back. I'm gonna get a few more jugs and we're gonna keep on working on this. Alrighty. So not sure if you can see me there, but anyway, remember where salts come from. Salts are in your water supply, and they can be many different types of salts. It can be minerals, they can be actually sodium. Sodium is quite toxic to plants, so actually like table salt, extremely toxic to plants, so you got to be really careful with that. But this is just assorted minerals in this particular soil that's causing all the problems. So we got to get them out of there. We got to soak them. So now this has been I think my third watering, and I'm going to, I can see the tray is filling up, so I'm going to try and see if I can lift this thing. It just weighs a ton, so see what I can do. Good enough for baby, good enough for my plants. Okay, so now we have let it sit for about 40 minutes. We've ran the distilled water through it, and now I've got to give it another leaching now. That was my primary leaching with distilled water. Now I'm going to use reverse osmosis water. So we have a water treatment in the house where we take we have the water softener where it takes the calcium out of the water and some of the other minerals. So we have that water, and then it goes through a reverse osmosis system, so it's quite clean. It's not as good as distilled water, but it's the next best thing. So I've ran that. I'm hoping this is all fully dissolved now. So this is the next step. Comes the sun, so now the plant hasn't been exposed to direct sunlight before, so we have to start thinking about that, and that we need to speed up this process to get this plant back inside. So not too much we can do now. I'm hoping the clouds come back, but it may not. But generally we're okay for about 30 minutes or so. So we'll wrap this up now by putting the last gallon of water through it. If I could wait, a little bit longer, it'd be good to dissolve that material. Get the salts nice and wet and let them soak for a while. That's what dissolves them. It takes time. Then once it's dissolved, just wash them through. Sometimes tilting the plant slightly can speed that up a little bit, just because the hole in the bottom can be plugged, just because it sits flat. This deck is being replaced, so within the next month or so, I'm looking forward to that. And then I won't be doing gardening stuff on it anymore. Alrighty, well, I'll have to let this thing sit and drip out. I think the time is right. I think we got it. I'm going to keep an eye on it, make sure that I should see a change. Now, how I can tell that it's improved is if I go along with a pair of scissors and trim off all the brown edges. And then by eliminating the brown edges, if they don't return, that means that I have success. If they come back, that means it needs another leaching. If I had really good water, like from my hose, like if you had a garden hose that produces good city water that might be from a lake, like a body of water, it's always better water than what comes out of a well. Use that body of water, the water from the lake as your leaching agent. You can just use a garden hose. This is way easier when you have a hose that produces nice clean water. So then what you do is you just leach it through. You can do it as many times as you want. You can't do it too much, right? Just get rid of it. Get that flushed out. And remember that when you wash water through a root system of a plant, that as it runs through, it's percolating down and it runs through and it washes out all those salts, but it's pulling fresh oxygen in behind it. And that's the key. Roots breathe oxygen. And not only, are we making it easier for the plant to absorb water, but we're actually making it easier for the plant to breathe, the roots to breathe. I always think of the roots as the lungs of the plant. So it's something to just keep in your head when it comes to plants. But house plants, they need leaching twice a year. Don't forget it. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Leach your plants.